Okay, so let me switch over the screen so that we can start and maximize our time. Okay, so I'd like to welcome everyone to this series in personal leadership. This is, I believe, our third or fourth session, not definitely on personal leadership, but on similar themes. So this presentation is brought to you by the Executive Network. And the Executive Network is actually has the mission to um, influence the culture in the marketplace by what I call the original ideas. By the original ideas, I mean the concepts in the mind of God, the thoughts, original thoughts in the mind of God. Now, to do this, our aim is to lead in personal, in corporate, and national life through kingdom servant leadership. We also want to promote um, family life that's healthy and prosperous. We want to be visible in the marketplace. When I say visible, I don't necessarily mean that we go around with stickers and banners. No, we want to make impact, to want to influence the marketplace um, in, in a quite an interesting way. We don't want to shout, but we still want to build influence. If it's the way, if you put salt in your bowl of soup, the salt does not need to shout, but depending on the volume of salt you put in, you can obviously tell the difference. And so we also want to promote the highest quality of excellent service in our market domains. In other words, this is a mission to and for people in the marketplace, people who are in business, professionals, including people who might be in other professions that we would not normally classify as professional services. For example, um, you might think of housewives. Are they qualified, or does this include them? Absolutely so. As long as one has influence in any area whatsoever, we consider such people as being part of the part of our market, people we're meant to reach. So now our aim is to teach and reinforce kingdom precepts. When I say kingdom precepts, I'm talking about the original precepts in the mind of God, not necessarily by carrying our Bibles and using all the religious languages, but by using languages that the marketplace understands. So we are totally non-religious. We have no interest in religion because we believe that religion is not the answer to most problems in the world. So that's just in a nutshell what the mission of the Executive Network is. Before I go ahead, I just feel like I should give us a bit of comfort around the tool, just for people who are joining us who might not be that familiar with this environment. So if you look over to your right, as I said, you see a few tabs: chat, poll, attendees, pop-in, and videos. I think the three areas we might want to focus on are the first three. So the chat, that's where we can interact and share messages, both with the presenter or presenters and amongst ourselves. We can give live comments and so on. The third one, the attendees, that's where you see the list of people who are currently joined in the section. And then polls. So that's where we might just post periodic messages or live messages during the presentation for delegates to respond to. So please watch out for those in the course of this presentation. Um, the broadcast is live, and what we have is a platform that allows us to record what we do directly onto the YouTube platform. So which means the presentation becomes immediately available for replay after the session is finished. So if you're interested in seeing a replay, please let me know and I'll make that available. Um, well, if you look to your left, I'm not quite sure what to see, but there are a few buttons there that, depending on what the function of the delegate is, you might want to use those to do some additional tasks. So, but we can leave the old setting as it is now. I believe it's been configured for appropriately for our use. So I'm just going to, in a moment, just forward an IV to someone who's been asking me about joining. So if you don't mind, I'll quickly just send that to the delegate. Obviously, this is happening because a lot of people are just hearing about it and it's beginning to gain traction. So we think that it's an opportunity for us to, reach out to more people and hopefully contribute our own bit to helping our society to become better. So in a moment, I'm going to just switch back to the presentation. By the way, if you think maybe, well, I suppose at the end of this presentation, you can judge for yourself. You can, if you think this is useful for someone, I would encourage us to invite people on and be part of what we're doing. So spouses are welcome, friends are welcome, colleagues are welcome. Okay, so I'm just going to switch back the screen and continue the presentation. So we are looking in this series on understanding the foundation of personal leadership. It's a series because we can't possibly cover all this in one session. So we're going to do it incrementally and hopefully maybe over a period of 4 weeks, thereabout, we can give it a good, we can do justice to the topic. Now, in this, I want to begin by looking at what I call the divine search. And I'd like to make some submissions that every man is searching for meaning and answer to life circumstances. Every man is searching for meaning and answers to life circumstances. You know, every man is searching for truth about pretty much everything. Now, the search for truth, in my mind, I believe is proof of dissatisfaction with the present. If one is satisfied with the present, then perhaps there's no need to look for an alternative. Truth is not in man's present or man's future, but truth is actually in man's past. These are broad-reaching statements which I would encourage us to look at very deeply, think about very deeply, because in my mind, I believe they relate to something that is seated deep inside of every one of us. So I would say truth is inside man and definitely hidden away somewhere inside man. This is, I believe, is the reason why when we were involved in certain tasks, at some point we just get bored. We feel like, is this all I can do? I just want to do something else. And if we take a close look at our present education system, including what we find in religion at the moment, it's obvious that all of that is based on the search for truth. In fact, if you look at religion, every religion believes that it has the truth. And so if you don't believe what I believe, then I feel like I have to fight you. If you talk differently from the way I talk, then I begin to uh, judge whether I'm actually better, or whether maybe I should feel a bit inferior to the other party. So the society, the education system, religion, um, including all that we do in science, is obviously a search for truth. So then, how important is truth if truth is being sought for as we see it? My question is, why will men, or why will mankind go to the moon? What exactly are we looking for? Why would we go to the Mars, the red planet? What are we seeking? Why are we digging to the Earth crust? Why are we studying volcanoes, magmas? Why are we why are we looking at all the various scientific innovations? Why are we doing nanotechnologies? Why are we studying um, human biology itself, and so many things? Why are we doing genetic engineering and all that? Why are we doing crop improvement? In my mind, um, it suggests to me that there is a deep search in the heart of man. There is something that's calling forth for um, something that's out there that we just can't lay hold of, but we believe that if we continue to search, somehow, somewhere, somehow, we would stumble on it. So I'll say truth reveals the origin and destination of a thing, which means everything begins somewhere, everything is heading somewhere. Even life itself begins at some point and ends at some point. So truth, therefore, looks to me like um, the the beginning and end of a thing. Truth is the original intent of a thing. When I say intent, that connotes that there is some actor who's exercising freedom of thought. So what is in the mind of an actor? What's in the mind of an actor? What does it have in mind? Why does it do what it does? So now, I also believe that truth saves from error and destruction. Obviously, if you look at what we currently know, the more we seem to know about a few things in our environment, the more we better protect ourselves. There was a time when to do surgery, you have to use the hacksaw and actually just saw into the bone and cut a man off without any form of sedatives. You're just hoping that well, the man will make it through the pains. And so we can imagine what sort of agony that mankind will have gone through all of that time. And there are some diseases that at that time, because we just don't know what they're about, sometimes human can believe it's some misfortune somewhere. And then some things that we more or less take for granted now, like bacterial infection, I believe must have killed so many people in the past. So the more we seek to know, the more we are able to sort of amend our ways and also preserve life. So I'll then say that truth give life to everything. Now, there is a connotation here that I want to make reference to. I'm of the firm opinion that uh, most people in the world are either of two schools of thought. Um, certain a certain class believe that mankind came out by accident, and another class believes that man is a deliberate creation of a superior being. So, but then, you know, I would say it gets clearer by the day, whatever one believes. But most of my assertions are based on research that's done on ancient manuscripts. And I find none more um, more honorable, more delightful to research than the Bible, which continues to amaze me each time I look at it. So I would say therefore that truth reveals the potential, the power, and the limitation of a thing. Potential, meaning that truth allows someone to know what it's actually capable of. The more you know about a thing or about oneself, the more you can begin to see what you are truly capable of. And once you know what you're capable of, then you can imagine or you become aware of what you can do and what you cannot do. What you can do shows the potential and your ability to do it, your power. But what you can't do obviously reveals the limitation. So truth, therefore, is the principle of existence, of life, and the operation or functioning of a thing. By the way, most of our sessions are meant to run for just 1 hour. So wherever we get to within the hour, we would stop there and hopefully continue the next session. Currently, our sessions take place Thursdays every fortnight. But I'm hoping that going into the second quarter of the year, we'll be able to run it weekly because there's so much content, there's so much to learn that someone like me, I've submitted into the School of Perpetual Learning. I'm very hungry and I want to know more. So if you're talking about truth, well, there's something I suppose comes to mind which has to do with the concept called heart. Most of the time when I talk to people, I ask, what is the heart? Two definitions come to the fore immediately. You can ask, am I talking about the heart as in the organ that performs the function of pumping blood? Or am I talking about another function? Or am I talking about something else that is not physical? But of course, when we're talking about truth, in relation to truth, we're definitely not talking about pumping blood. Of course, we know the heart, which is in the hopefully in the left side of the body, pumps blood. But when it comes to thinking and truth and working with ideas, we're talking about a different heart, which obviously, or by obvious inference, is not in the left part of the body, left part of the chest, I meant to say. So I begin by saying that the senses are the channels to man's mind. The senses, the eyes, the nose, uh, the sense of feeling, of touch, and all that are channels. They give information to man's mind. Man's mind, obviously, according to neuroscience, is in the region of the brain, perhaps a center of coordination, where you have the cerebrum, and all that. I'm not a medical scientist, but I've read a bit about that. Now, the conscious mind is the primary collector and processor of information, obviously, which is why we most of sciences that we do are called natural sciences, and the physics, the chemistry, and all that. They all do with collecting, processing information, and utilizing them. Now, all that a man accepts as being factual or being truth, truth in this case mean, look, you can't refute this. They are stored in what I have termed the library of the mind. This is similar to the way we store our books, or our books, whether in schools or in our private libraries. If you have a book, you take it, is to put it in some bookshelf or in some library. In the same way, every idea, every information that comes into the mind is obviously filed away in the library, which is why sometimes when we forget a thing, we try to recall it, and at some point it just kind of pops back to the front to our conscious mind and say, oh my, I remember now. So I would say that the mind's library is the heart of the mind, or in computing terms, you call it the kernel of the hard disk. If anybody's familiar with IT here, as I am, you probably relate to that. So the man's mind is effectively no, the man's library is what I would like to refer here to as the heart of the man. For people who are familiar with scriptures, you'll probably be aware of this verse that says that as a man thinks in his heart, so is the man. What does that mean? Obviously, I don't think with the organ that pumps blood. So I have to then check which organ do I think with. Well, I would probably think is the organ that sits on my head or inside my head, inside my skull. So whatever we used to think um, has something to do with the heart. So now heart again is the region below consciousness, or I call it below mind, or I call it inner mind. And so in some places, I think the psychologists or people who do mind science, they call it the subconscious. It's a place below the consciousness. It's a place where everything that a man accepts to be true is internalized. In fact, the content of the heart is what influences the attitudes, behavior, and lifestyle. And what do you have in the content of mind? You have of the heart rather. You have beliefs. You have that's what houses man's mentality, man's outlook on life. That's where what man as believes as a way of life, which is what we call philosophy, that's where it's stored. So I would like to submit therefore that man is no better than the content of his heart. No man is better than the content of his heart. The madman sleeps under the bridge only because his mind tells him it's okay. Somewhere, somehow, a fuse has gone off, and the man thinks, well, I can do this. If someone stands on the road fighting, somehow in the mind of that individual, he thinks there's nothing wrong with this, or this is something that I can afford to do. Someone who walks somewhere and tries to show decorum, obviously believes in his heart that his dignity is worth preserving. So that's why I say that man and every man is really no better than the content of his heart. So in that case, you can tell that the worth of a man has a lot to do with the content of his heart. We are talking about personal leadership, and you might be wondering, why are we looking at all of this? It's because we call it personal because it has to do with the individual first. And there is no better resource to the individual than the heart, because the heart is simply the library. All the knowledge that the individual believes to be true are stored in the library of his mind, which you call the heart. So the worth of man is related to the understanding of the precept of man. I'm using certain words here, which I'm sure over time we're going to get used to. When I use words like precept, that has a very deep meaning for me. Precept comes from the word pre and sept. Pre means first or before, and the word sept means idea. It means thought. So precept therefore means the original thought or the original idea of man. I was saying the other time that truth is not really ahead, and it's not really in the present, it's in the past. It means it's the original state of a thing. When you buy say a PC or a car in a new state, that's just, if you imagine a car that just comes out of the workshop, that is that car in its original state. We call it default state. So we're talking about the default state of a man. Now, the worth of a man cannot be understood by studying another human. I'll use an example. There is no way, if you put two cars together, say Volvo and Mercedes, the only thing that's common to them is that they are both cars. But you cannot fully understand the engineering of Volvo by looking at Mercedes. Yes, you might see similar parts, which is why we compare them. We compare things because we think they are similar. But the truth of Volvo does not reside in observing Mercedes. In the same way, if we look at birds, every bird we have wings, but I cannot fully understand a dove if I'm looking at a hawk. The only thing similar to them is that they both fly. They both have two legs. Do we call them legs now? They have talons, but they are intrinsically different from each other. So therefore, every man's worth really has a lot to do with what the heart of the man believes. Now, man's worth was actually, but you see, the fact that a man believes something about himself does not necessarily mean the man is right, because man's worth was not really given. It's not a subjective evaluation. It's not something that is totally in the hand of that man to decide for himself. There is, and I said this again, I'm talking from the concept of the fact that man did not come about by accident, but by deliberate creation. So if that's the case, then man's worth couldn't have been decided by the man, but must have been predetermined before the man came on the scene. So the measure of a thing is determined by, we know that in all of our shopping and all that the measure of a thing is determined not really by the price that you put on it, but by what somebody thinks is what. For example, you go somewhere, you pick something, it says £5, and your mind is saying, no, I'm not paying £5 for this, and you drop it and go away. Now, in the mind of the seller, it's £5, but in the mind of the buyer, it's something else. Or someone might go somewhere, you think, oh, this thing costs £10, or if you are in America, maybe $10, or maybe in Nigeria, you think it's 10 naira. But in your mind, you feel, I've been looking for this thing for 2 months, and I thought this thing will actually cost me about 20 naira or £20 or $20. It's only 10 naira. Now, without hesitation, you go for it and say, because in your mind, you think your estimation of the value of the thing differs from what the seller has put on it. In other words, no matter what, say the creator, what worth the creator puts upon man, whatever the man thinks that is, that's exactly what it actually becomes. Which means it's possible to have different evaluation about oneself, different from what the creator intended. And I believe that's the basis for pride and what you call inferiority complex. So if you think you are worth less than what the creator made, then obviously you have a low valuation of yourself and you have inferiority complex. If you think you are more than what the creator created, then you probably be prideful and think, no, I'm all that. In fact, I'm more than all that. So that's why I meant when I wrote that man's worth, the measure of a thing is determined by the price someone pays for it. Now, in the creator's mind, man is only comparable to God or to himself. Now, these concepts are so important to personal leadership, and we'll see this in due course, because if our valuation of ourselves differs from what the designer or the creator of man intended, then obviously everything takes its course right from there. If I think that another a colleague of mine at work is not really someone I'm willing to respect, it's someone I don't really place any value on that on the individual. Now everything I'm going to do about that individual will stem from that place. I'm going to gossip about the person. I'm going to say, oh, that guy, don't mind him. I'm going to, if I have opportunity to harm the person, harm the career, I'll probably do it because, as far as I'm concerned, this individual is not worth that much to me. Maybe that's one of the reasons why you find things like racism, because it has to do with valuation. If you're saying someone is not worth what you are, then obviously you're going to put less value on them, and every other thing is going to stem right from there. So, but in the creator's mind, this is different. In fact, the creator thinks that man is only just a little tiny bit lower than himself. I believe that understanding this is salvation for somebody who feels um, inferior about himself. Because if one comes to terms with the fact that the creator thinks that I am related to him, I can only be viewed, I can only be evaluated in relation to him, obviously that changes my mind. It changes what I believe about myself. It changes everything I think about myself. And I like to use this analogy. When a lion bats what people call a lion cub, you see, the word lion cub, the word cub, C-U-B, does not exist in the library of lions. When the lion gives birth, all the lion knows is that, all the lioness knows is this: I have a lion. Another lion is born. So the lion treats that cub as a lion. The lion does not think this is a puppy. It thinks this is a lion. Yeah, it's diminutive, very small, but it's a lion. It has all the features of a lion. If it's a female lion, if it's a lioness, it has the womb right inside there. If it's a male lion, it has the testicles, it has everything required to be a male lion right in there. In fact, it has manes. Only that eyes that look are plentiful, but eyes that see are rare. What I mean by that is this: not many people can see the manes, even though they exist. So it's I believe is the principle of the potential of man. I want to talk about something which I call the precept of mankind. The precept, don't forget the word I used about precept, original thought about mankind, original idea of mankind. And when I say mankind, I mean every human. There are currently about 7.2 billion people on the earth, and this actually talks about every one of them. That man's principal function is the administration and management of order on the earth. Order means the work of man is deciding what goes here on the planet. The ability of man to bring order to earth is actually inborn, based on the design of man. This is probably the reason why we do what we do. When we have a garden, without so much persuasion, we go in there and try to fix it if we think it's growing over with bush. If our house is dirty, we want to put order into it, and so on and so forth. So man has the ability to act, to respond, and alter the state and shape of earth. We've seen enough of that. The skyscrapers, the many bridges that were built, the cars, the ships, all talk to that. Man has delegated ownership of earth and its resources. I use the word delegated because man is not the primary owner of earth. Man is what I would call a secondary owner, or a delegated authority over earth. I have a bias in saying all this and my bias obviously comes from the foundational truths written in scriptures. But the scriptures for me is not a religious book. It's not a book to dust off and read in churches. In fact, if you look at certain nations of the earth, most of the laws that they uphold are based on the scriptures. As a matter of fact, most of the laws that govern the earth now are all based on the original precepts given to a leader. I'll probably call him a civil leader at the time. The man, Mr. Mo. I'll call him Mr. Mo. I'm talking about Moses. For people who are not used to Mr. Mo. So the man obviously wrote a law which virtually everyone on the earth has been stealing from, if I can use that word guardedly. So the state of the earth, therefore, is man's responsibility. These are heavy statements that we need to think about very deeply. When I say, perhaps I should say, the state of the earth is your responsibility. Because if I say man, you might be thinking, oh, some man somewhere. I'm talking about you and I. The primary assignment of man, you and I, therefore, is governing government. In this year, quite a number of nations are going through elections. And we see what happens when governments are going to be elected. We see how much emotion that is raised. We see how, in fact, in some countries, some people are ready to let blood because of the importance that we put on governing or on government. Why? Because somehow in the recess of our mind, of our heart, we believe that government is the solution to many things. Look at the UK government. Each time there's gonna be any talk on the budget or something, you see how people go in there, listen very intently, because somehow everyone believes that whatever the government does affects every one of us. And it does. Because the function of government is to decide policy or the order by which a territory is ruled. So the primary assignment of man, therefore, is government over self and over earth. I've used those words guardedly. Over self and over earth. Man's purpose and assignment on earth is leadership, because the word governing is about leading. The word governing, and by the time we look at leadership a bit more, we'll probably begin to perhaps question some of the thoughts, some of the concepts that we have about leadership. What makes man, what gives him the ability to govern or to lead on the earth? I would say by design. When I say design, I want us to consider a few thoughts about design. Design signifies purpose, plan, intent that exists behind an action. Design talks of nature, content, the shape, and the craft of a thing, or of a process, or of a place. Design reveals the thoughts and the mind of the actor or the principal. When I see your design, I can probably tell what's in your mind. When you look at the works of architects, you can begin to understand what they are thinking. When you look at a Mercedes-Benz, you can begin to appreciate the beauty of the mind of the designers. When you look at spacecraft and so on and so forth, you can begin to imagine, wow, so this can come out of the mind of a man. So design predicts and reveals function. Obviously, if you look at a blade, the blade of a knife, you can tell what it's meant to do. It's meant to cut, period. If you look at the scissors, it's meant to cut certain things by design. Design signifies the intent to change the nature and state of a thing, or place, a process, or people. Design is potential and specification. These are very deep thoughts, which I would encourage us to look at intently. Another reason by which what that qualifies man to do what um, I expressed earlier on is also its function. And by function, I want us to look at that very intently. Function is the purpose, really, and the parent of design. What do I mean by that? The reason, the function that we expect from a thing is what determines how we design the thing. So function therefore precedes design. We don't do design and then think about function. We think about function and then do design. So that's why we say necessity is the mother of invention. If we want to sit on a thing, then we design it in a way that's capable of allowing it to be sat on. So the purpose of design and specification, therefore, is the intended function. Design should not be challenged until function is known. You say, you may not know the purpose of a thing. You may not know why something is, but so therefore, we need to seek to understand the function of a thing before we challenge the design. Which means if somebody is so dark in complexion, I'm not talking about myself, obviously, but if somebody is so dark, before you get angry about the dark complexion, ask why the person is dark. If somebody is so tall, instead of being angry or jealous, just ask, why is this person so tall? And then you can begin to understand why the person is actually tall. The function predicts and actually shows us the design. So the function of a thing is the measure of its success and progress. What we want a thing to do is what we will use as a yardstick to check whether the thing is actually successfully doing it or whether it's progressive in doing it. If function is compromised, design must be altered. I suppose these are original thoughts which I should be tweeting, but don't worry about that. That's meant to inject some humor. So if the function of a thing is compromised, design must be altered. In effect, function is work. Function is what something must do, is the work. Or function is what we expect something to become. Work is being true to function and design. Work is being true to function and design. Now, the premise of design and function. The quality of design is related to the ability of the designer. In other words, whatever someone designed, that's why if you look at cars, we see that cars are different. We see some cars and we obviously appreciate the designer and we want to be associated with those cars. We see some other ones and we wonder what the person, but it's obviously a reflection of what the designer is capable of. The design is the fruit and the offspring of the designer. That's why we say the father of computing is so. The father of genetics is Gregor Mendel. Or is it genetics now or something? So, we say that because what the designer does is the word brainchild. It births his brainchild. The design, when you say a plan that's beautifully done, that is the brainchild of an architect. So design reveals the mind of the designer. Every design product has operating conditions and environment. In fact, when you're designing a thing, you must, most of us have gadgets, our phones and all that. In fact, most of the things that we buy, when we buy them, there's a manual that comes on them. And the designer or the creator of those things, the manufacturer, will tell us the operating conditions, will tell us the specifications, will tell us how to replace a part that becomes faulty based on specification. Maybe you probably appreciate one of the things that one of the second king of Israel, what he wrote. He said, I will praise you, O Lord, because I'm beautifully and wonderfully made. It's not talking about beauty as in a beautiful woman or a handsome man. No, it's talking about specification and design. I'm made to design and specification. Why? It is always in the manufacturer's interest to make everything specific to design. Why do you do that? You want to avoid product recall, because product recall is always an expensive operation. So you want to save money, and you also want to save your reputation. That's why every designer will always make sure that everything is designed to specification and also specify the operating conditions and environment, which is why you say, if you are a woman and you are using your, is it high hair dryer now, don't use it inside the bathtub, because if it drops in the bathtub, there's risk of electrocution. So normal functioning, therefore, is only guaranteed by adherence to the specified conditions and environment. I'm saying all this with respect to personal leadership, because if, as an individual, we understand the premise of our design function, we can begin to auto-adjust. If I use that word, we can begin to self-adjust and say, right, I'm actually stepping out of my operating conditions and predetermine the environment. The conditions of functioning, therefore, are intended not to inhibit, but to protect the product. So if I say, do not operate inside water, I'm not against water. I only know what the product is for. That the product is not for water, it's for a moisture-free environment. Now, divine origin. I'm going to start to round up around here. Let me also state before I go on to say this, that I would imagine that we will have some questions. What I would encourage us to do is to kind of, post those questions on that in that chat area. For people who are not aware, the chat area is, if you look to your right on your screen, is the first tab that you see just to your right, where you can post chats to me privately, or you can do that to the group. If you want to say it to the group, you can always do that. You can introduce yourself and say where you are joining us from, and I will very much encourage you to do that. So I will round up on this note because it's almost 10 o'clock. So divine origin of personal leadership. This is now where we are actually now getting to the meat of this presentation, and I think I'm just maybe a quarter of a way, or a quarter into this presentation. So if you, I will encourage you to look forward to the next session, because there's so much content to share on this platform. Now, man's leadership mandate is of divine prerogative. What I mean by that is this: the creator of man decided what man should be and what his assignment should be. So man did not decide to be a leader. He was born to be a leader. He was designed to be a leader. The making, that's why if you look at it, of all things that is created, there is no other being that is designed to walk on two legs perpetually. Even when the apes, when they stand up a bit, they have to come down and walk on four legs. There's only one apex creature designed to walk upright, and that's man. The making of man proved the priority of God's intent. I'm lavish about the use of the name of God, even though this is not a religious environment. I also believe that the word God has nothing to do with religion, because we hear a lot about the use of God even in the marketplace. So don't feel shy about using God. In fact, I would say that just be like God, just reflect God, so that when somebody is looking for God, they see you, they see exactly the image of God. So it is not some, but all mankind, male and female. So you can imagine, therefore, that equality of gender is not a new idea. It's an old idea. In fact, it's an original idea. That's why I call it the divine origins of personal leadership. So which means, male or female, you are designed to be a leader. There's a personal leadership attribute about you. And I dare say, which is why when I began this presentation, I said, every man is looking for meaning. The reason for our frustrations, for how we feel when we feel down and all that, is because we are not really looking for somebody else, we are looking for ourselves. Mankind is lost, and we're just really looking to find ourselves again. Now, the location, the sphere, and the scope of leadership is well defined. So man does not need to wonder where the jurisdiction of his administrative function, the earth, is for man. Which is why I said, which was why I made those statements earlier on. I made them in advance so that we can see deeply into them. Earth is for man. The sphere and the scope of leadership. The sphere, I'm talking about the earth, the waters, the air over earth, and all that. Those are for men. The scope, leadership function, is meant to be exercised over everything that creeps, everything that walks on all fours. So if a human being does not walk on all fours and does not creep and does not fly and does not swim, does not have scales, or it does not have a slimy body, that being is out of the jurisdiction of the exercise of authority. In other words, man was not designed to have authority over man. And the way what we have on earth now is proof that that is actually not true. The reason why we are saying we're talking about civil rights, we're talking about discrimination, is all because there's a violation of that original precept. The order intended for the earth precedes man, but not hidden from man. In other words, God has made all this bare, and they are only available to those who find them. Let me say, in rounding up, that this platform is for the presentation, for the teaching, for the sharing of precepts. We are only interested in the original ideas, because the original idea is only the truth, and what everyone is looking for is the truth. And when you know the truth, you become free from errors. And error is simply departure from the truth. And to correct an error, all you need to do is to retrace the truth, not further down the line, but back to the origin. That's why I say that truth is not in the future. It's not even the present, because the present might be erroneous. Truth is always retracing back to the original idea, to the past. I have much more to say. This is only about slide 10 or so, or slide 8 of many. I would want to stop here, but I invite questions. So if you have questions, I would encourage you to post them on our platform, and I'm hoping that we can catch up on this in our next session. Also, I would also like you to freely tell us if you think that there is a poll that is available. In fact, there are 2 polls that you probably see. So please feel free to answer those polls. Those will help us to improve our service, because we're simply here to serve you. So help us to serve you better, and we look forward to working together with everyone to really become the leader that we are. Look, everyone on this platform is a leader, but another truth is that not many of us know how to become the leader that we are. All that an apple tree wants to be is the apple tree, which is capable of bearing apple fruits. If the apple tree cannot bear apple fruit, there is a problem. So if man was born for leadership and man does not know how to exercise that leadership, there's a problem. There's constant frustration. So, and in fact, it's risky when the tree does not bear fruit, because the owner of the land might say, let's cut it down. So I encourage us to, if you think this is useful, spread the word. Let's bring more people, because leadership is actually for the 7.2 billion people on the earth, and we all can co-lead. We will see how that's possible as we go on. Thank you for listening, and I would probably just like to to draw the curtain at this point. So if you would like to sort of answer those polls that you see, if the polls you can see them on the second tab, I would really appreciate that. I'm sure the team will appreciate it. As we go forward, we're going to improve a lot of things. We're going to make sure that it will be a proper webinar which is capable of standing, holding its own anywhere in the world. That's our mission, because we want to give simply the best. We value time, and we want to make sure that everything is done to time, not beyond 1 hour, unless otherwise stated well ahead of time. So if you think we want to make it 90 minutes, we will make that intention known well ahead of time. So thank you for listening. Thank you for coming. We appreciate you. And I respect your commitment to your private leadership. God bless you. I'll see you next time.